LFC Daytrippers, brought to you by bookmakers.com.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Friday Night Forecast, sponsored by bookmakers.com. Tonight, we're joined by Luke Tanner up there in my spot. Jefoe, who's in our resident Wolves fan from Wolves Fancast. And down the bottom there is Luke from Park Lane Podcast. Evening, everyone. How are we all?
Yeah, good. Thank you. How
all
are
good?
You?
All good? Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Luke Tanner, you had a bit of an eventful night tonight. Do you want to share?
Yeah, so I get a taxi on the way home, and then I tell the taxi driver, "Oh, I've got a podcast to do on LFC Daytrippers." Then I find out that he's a subscriber. So, Steve, if you're watching after your shift, thank you very much for the lift home. Shame it wasn't a free one though, but can't complain.
The man's got to make a living, you know what I mean? You can't.
I know.
Look at the star boy here going around asking for freebies because he's on YouTube.
I didn't ask for the freebies. I'll take one next time, though.
Fair shot. Well, he's got his shout out, so well done. But look, back to the Premier League. Transfer window's shut. Last night we had a show, and I think the first half of the show was literally taken up with transfers. So there's going to be no talk of Liverpool transfers whatsoever tonight. Nothing. But Jefoe, I'm going to come to you first. How's your window gone? You happy with it? And there's one kid in particular I want to ask you about is your Brazilian central midfielder. What are you expecting from his João Gomez. João Gomez. That's it. What is he all about? Because there was a lot of hype about him. So you got him in the door. Must be happy.
Yeah, over the moon, to be honest. From what we've seen through clips and through Brazilian media and through people like Tim Vickering, is glowing reports, and you can see that he's the type of midfielder that Wolves don't have. That sort of combative midfielder, that pit bull, in the style of like a Gilberto Silva, someone who can break up play and it's quite neat and tidy with the football. He come in and it was the nature of his transfer that made him almost a cult hero overnight. Because he says from day one he wanted to come to Wolves, and he said, I don't want to go to Lyon, despite there being more money on the table, which was fantastic, and the fans have all just got behind him. As terms of the window, relatively happy. Probably like a sort of an 8 out of 10. Probably could have done with maybe another fullback on the right back to be specific, and probably another forward. But I think we're a lot well stocked now, and especially through midfield, we've got pretty much 2 players for every position, which is nice, and it's something that we haven't had since pre-Nuno, because we've always had like a thin squad. So if we go into it and we feel prepared, we feel like a real football club now.
Cool. And Luke, you finally got your man in the door in the end. Oh, you had to pay well for him. To be fair,
I know. Yeah, it was just a nightmare, wasn't it? Like the deal's off, the deal's on, the deal's off, the deal's on. Look, from my stance on Pedro Porro, it was always going to happen. It was just how it was going to happen. And when media reports said that Sporting had pulled the plug and that they'd changed the terms at the last minute, it was always going to get done, but they just wanted to make it extremely difficult, because you know what Spurs are like when it comes to any transfers, right? They try to negotiate the terms, because going into the January transfer window, he had a 45 million euro, I think, release clause. Yeah. Or something approximately around those lines, right? And Spurs fans were crying out saying, pay the money, just pay the money up front and just buy it. Spurs never do that, though. They will never, ever, ever pay the money outright. So it was about structuring the deal. It's now turned out that it's a loan with an obligation to buy. We've taken off 15% of Marcus Edwards' sell-on clause, which was at 50%. So now it's at 35%. And so financially, this window works brilliantly. 2 loan signings in, Porro with an obligation to buy. But then a lot of Spurs fans are now saying, well, where's the money coming from in the summer? Because we still have to pay for Kulusevski. We now have to pay for Pedro Porro. So where is the money coming from to do that? But pretty happy with it in the end. Can't wait till we actually see him perform, because the only games that I've ever watched him in is against us in the Champions League. So, it's whether he can perform and really show his worth, because on that side, we really need a good wing back.
Well, he is that. I mean, he's energetic. He's high energy. He's up and down the pitch. He's got lungs like a marathon runner. He'll just go and go and go. He's got good in product in his delivery. He's just questionable defensively.
Yeah.
And for that, I mean, look, I think Spurs did a really good, solid with Matt Doherty by ripping up his contract and allowing him to go, because that was the other sticking point, was finding a space in the squad for him. And the way I think it, with Mac going to Atletico Madrid, it had to be that way, because Atletico had the maximum amount of loans in or something like that. So
Spurs have the maximum amount of loans out, which is why they had to rip up his contract in the end.
It's mental, isn't it? I think, look, Spurs can be happy with the window that you kept your main player. You kept who you needed to keep. You've addressed the position that needed to be addressed. But at the same time, it was a long month, and it feels like something that could have been done mid-month and job done, go away kind of thing, but in all's well that ends well in the end, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing we really, really probably could have done with was a proper left-footed centre-back. But, with Longley still on loan, I didn't see that really happening. I think they'll push for that in the summer.
Well, we've got 4 games to get through. We're going to go through Everton versus Arsenal, Newcastle, West Ham, Wolves against Liverpool, obviously, and Spurs against Man City. So, look, we'll start off 12:30 kickoff. And Luke T, Everton versus Arsenal. Sean Dyche, first game in charge. He's got a massive job, hasn't he? Let's keep take the red hat and red glasses and everything off for a sec. They're a shit show from start to finish, and they've got rid of a manager who should never have been there in the first place. And it feels to me like they've cut Sean Dyche's legs from under him as soon as he signed his contract.
Yeah, I think Everton probably had the worst window out of any Premier League club. They let go Anthony Gordon for about 40 million to Newcastle. The only threat. Didn't get a replacement. Dyche has got one heck of a job on his hands. I don't think he's going to save them. I think Everton, do you know when you get those clubs that are like, they're staying like they've outstayed their welcome. Remember Sunderland, they were just surviving. And then they finally went down. I've got a feeling that this is Everton, because I just don't see how Dyche is going to get enough goals out of Everton to keep them up. Yes, you might make them a little bit better defensively, but to get out of the bottom 3, he's going to have to find someone to score goals. And Calvert-Lewin's been out injured. Mopai is not necessarily a goal scorer. Dwight McNeil's not a goal scorer. And Everton are probably going to end up going down, and it's not going to look good, because I think they are a mess financially. Rumours of Mashiri wanting to sell his £500 million share. Then rumours saying that he didn't. They've still got the stadium that's being built. They need to make sure that it's not floating way down the docks, because playing Championship football in that stadium is not going to be great next year. So, Dyche's got one hell of a job on his hands, but I think he's coming too late. if they were going to sack Lampard to get him in, they should have done that way before the start of the transfer window.
Yeah, I agree. Jefoe, Arsenal are flying it. Arguably had probably the best transfer window of any of the clubs in the top. Well, definitely any of the clubs in the top half of the table, with bang for buck and what they needed. How do you see them this season? And bear in mind, Arsenal going to Goodison, it's not a happy place for them. They don't tend to do well there. How do you see this one going?
Well, looking on paper, Everton don't play well. It should be a walk in the park for them, and they should be able to turn that around. And I mean, you'd say about them having a great window. That's exactly what they needed. Yeah. Arteta has got to now strengthen that squad to say, okay, if he had one or two injuries, then City would have been back on their tail straight away, because they haven't got a lot of strength in depth. Now the guys that they brought in, that gives them that another level. They can rotate the squad a little bit more, and they can, keep the players fresh and get the most out of the players that they've got. Trossard, brilliant signing really from Brighton. The way he left Brighton was not, favourable, and no one's going to look on that and say, okay, he did it in the right way, but he's a top player and he's going to give them something different. But as I say, it should be a walk in the park against Everton. I don't think Dyche will be able to make that much of a difference too quickly. I think he's lucky that the two forwards that he has got, Mopai and DCL, if he can keep him fit, that is, he's got two guys that he really likes in that style. So very similar to like Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes, who had at Burnley together. So it's not like he's got to massively change his style. He can still do his long ball football that he likes and he's most effective with. So I think they will start to get results, but I think, as you say, I don't think they'll stay up, because I just think getting rid of Gordon is as one of their only creative threats was dangerous, because they haven't replaced him, and now they've got to try and get goals from somewhere, and it's difficult when you haven't got creative players on a football pitch.
Yeah, especially at this day and age. I mean, look, Arsenal to me are one of the 2 or 3 best watches in the league at the minute. They look like they're just free flowing, full of confidence. And I mean, Luke, it must, considering where Arsenal finished and how they finished last season, it must kind of boil you a bit. But at the same time, through gritted teeth, Arsenal have shown the way to everyone else of how, if you build a squad in the right way, everything is possible. And that must be the blueprint for the likes of Spurs, Liverpool to rebuild again, and others who don't have endless pots of money to blow 500 million in 2 windows, of how it can be done if you get the planning right. But for me, it's taken Arsenal 3 windows to get to this stage.
Yeah, definitely. They talk about Spurs fans talk about not being backed and not backing the manager. Whereas if you look at Arteta's reign since he came into Arsenal and Spurs since Arteta came in, the outlay of money has not been vastly different. Right? They've spent a very similar amounts of money, but it's about how you spend the money and the ways that you spend the money. And, as much as I despise Arsenal, Arteta, don't even get me started in his touchline antics and all that nonsense. It's honestly ridiculous. Why have a box if you spend 90% of the game out of it? Anyway, but the way they have spent the money and how cutthroat he has been in terms of spending that money, most of it's probably not him. The fact that they bid 70 mil for Caicedo, they were willing to spend similar sums of money on Mudryk. They really have backed the manager, and fair play to them. On the flip side of that, putting my Spurs hat on, this season, look at the rest of the top 5-6 teams in the league. Have been atrocious. City have been bad this season. In terms of the way the personnel have been changed around, more than ever. And Pep does that a lot.
Oh, we'll get onto them later, trust me.
It's been tragic. Chelsea, tragic. Spurs, awful. And so, when you look at that, then you can say, okay, let's see how they fare in, 2-3 seasons back to back and see how we get on. But look, you can't deny that they've spent well. Everton on the flip side, it doesn't sit well with me, right? They spent ages talking about Bielsa, and then Bielsa was never going to come based on the fact he had no preseason, his demands, all of the rest of it. It was always going to be Sean Dyche. He was a safe option, but if I'm Anthony Gordon, right, and the way he was treated by Everton fans, when they blocked off the roads and wanted answers from these players, like no wonder he said, "Do you know what? I'm done. Like I'm not interested."
Gone in the summer. Like Everton should have cashed in when Chelsea were offering £60 million. They should have just gone, yeah, fine, off you go. We'll drive you to London ourselves.
I can't see anything but an Arsenal win. Like I genuinely can't, and I don't want it to happen because now it's a matter of, for my season as Spurs fan, it's a matter of Arsenal not winning the league and whatever else happens. Yeah. But I can't see anything but a win.
I wanted to quickly ask you about Antonio Conte. What have you heard about how he is? How is his operation? Is he recovering well?
So, the rumors and the chat coming out is that he's absolutely fine and recovering and everything like that. But we'll see how long it'll take him. Look, I like Antonio Conte. I don't love him, but I like him. I'm not one of these Spurs fans that think he's the next best thing since sliced bread. I think there's faults to his style and the way he's tactically set up Spurs this season. We've been the worst possible team to watch in the league by far. And so, obviously, wishing the best of luck, and everything else. But he's had a hell of a year, losing very close friend of his coaching staff, Vialli as well. And, now he's had to have this operation. It doesn't really get much easier, does it?
No, but I imagine he won't be there this weekend anyway. But look, we'll get on to Antonio. I just wanted to check and see what he was healthy like. Just quick round of houses on a score prediction for Everton versus Arsenal, guys. Start off with you, Luke, at the top.
2-0 Arsenal.
2-0. Jefoe?
3-0 Arsenal.
Luke? Down the bottom?
3-0 Arsenal.
I think Arsenal will get it 1-0. They don't score many there. Dyche is one thing. One of the people in the car, I don't know who it was, but he put in a great comment. He said, Dyche won't let anybody go 20 yards close to the halfway line. He'll just park the bus, keep narrow and tight behind the ball, and anything they get in the counter or a set piece will be a bonus. But I can't see past an Arsenal win. But if they want to win the league, they have to go to places like Goodison and they have to win. And someone else put in the comments there earlier on, and you were dead right. Arsenal are getting a lot of plaudits, rightly so, for the football they're playing, but they're really a one competition team this season. They've played the youth players and the squad options in Europe and
in the cups.
And in the cups, to be fair. The amount of changes he made in that City game were, crazy. So everything is on the league, and rightly so for them. In the position that they're in, they got one golden chance to win it, amassing 50 points in the time frame that they did. I think when Liverpool ran away with the league a few years ago, and it was over at this stage, we had 55 points and the same number of games. We'd drawn one, I think. Yeah, we'd drawn one, lost one maybe, or 2 draws, something stupid like that. So they've amassed a massive points total for the amount of games that they've played. So look, credit to them, but they have to go to Everton and win. Simple as that. Pardon me. The other game for Saturday is 5:30 kickoff. Newcastle against West Ham. Now, another team massively in trouble, West Ham. Jefoe, I'll come to you first. They're down and around your neck of the woods at the minute, and when you look at the bottom half of the table, any side that can put 2 wins together can come right out of this. I didn't expect to see Wolves with the summer and this with the summer that they've had, I definitely didn't expect to see West Ham down there. But I think West Ham don't look like they look like they're treading water, and they don't look like they're going to be able to get out of it. And it's above all places to be going up to St. James's Park. And it is a place that they're just misers. They don't give up goals, and they're, it's a nightmare. I don't know how. I don't know if you're a West Ham fan, you must be climbing the walls. How do you see it? I mean, I get lost for words looking at it, because like they've spent savage money. Moyes is still in the job, so they're going to stick with him to the end of the season. It's crazy stuff.
I think you're right. I think you just said it there exactly. The problem for West Ham is they're not going to score goals, and they're going somewhere like you say, St James's Park. It's a difficult place for anyone to get any sort of result at the moment. Eddie Howe I don't know how he's doing it, because I've never rated him as a manager, really. And he's somehow getting this absolute fire of a run together. But yeah, West Ham are in the same sort of position as Wolves are in terms of the problems are the same on the pitch. They just can't score goals. We've got our issues with Jimenez. They've got their issues with Antonio. And that's the problem is that they've kind of stagnated over the last couple of seasons. They've got very good players. Thomas Suchek, he's still the same player that he was, over the last couple of years, but he isn't scoring the goals now. So they're not getting the set piece goals where they get 10, 12 a season. It's not there. You add that amount of goals into any side, they'd be probably in mid-table, 10th, 11th. And that's the difference is they can't put the ball in the back of the net. And if it keeps going that way, they're going to struggle. And they're going to get dragged into it. And like we said pre-show, Southampton have done quite well with their signings. If they put a couple of runs together, West Ham can get dragged in. And the same can be said for ourselves. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the table there now. And Leicester in 14th on 18 points. Southampton are 20th on 15 points. There's nothing in it. West Ham are sat 16th on 18 points. Wolves on 17 points. And you look at the likes, I mean, Luke, will come to you. West Ham are one problem. The other side of it, Newcastle, it's Bruno Guimaraes is suspended for the next 3 games. Nick Pope looks like he's absolutely flying, but apparently Alexander Isak was showing signs of concussion, so he might miss as well. Luke Tanner. How would you see this one going? I mean, on paper, you'd go Newcastle all day long at home, and what have you, but it's like they've got questions to answer as well. With they've spent again in this window. But can they manage to get a win tomorrow, first and foremost, and maintain their grip on the top 4?
Well, I think Newcastle's just on that crest of a wave. I think getting to the first cup final since '99. I think the whole club, the whole city is just on that wave. And yes, they do have a few injury concerns. I don't think they had the greatest of Januaries in terms of strengthening the squad. I thought that they would have got another midfielder in just in case Bruno got injured or got suspended. So that was a bit of an odd one. But I just, as Joe said, I never rated Eddie Howe as a manager. I thought he was lucky to get the Newcastle job, but he is somehow just as Newcastle just got on that crest of a wave and keep it going up and up and up. But this is a massive challenge to keep those same players motivated to finish the job and get top 4, because it'd be quite easy for some of those players to go, got a cup final to worry about. We don't need to worry about top 4. And it's now up to Eddie Howe to keep their mind focused that top 4 is the aim goal. Because if they get top 4, if we think that what they've spent so far looks obscene, just wait till the summer. Champions League football as a whole will be a whole different ball game. And for West Ham, I think David Moyes is lucky he's still in the job. Like, he is lucky there's not top managers sitting around twiddling their thumbs wanting to take the West Ham job, because if there was, then he'd be out of a job by now. I think he spent a lot of money on like Paqueta, Scamacca, the centre half that got injured but is now back. Trying to think what other big money signings. He's made big money signings and he's just not delivered. I don't know what not there, putting their eggs in the Conference League basket, hoping to win that, because that's their only way of having any sort of a successful season is West Ham winning the Conference League.
Well, Luke, Newcastle United, someone was putting in there, Sven Botman looks like absolute great bit of business. A phenomenal centre back, having a great season. Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier. They're just so hard to break down. Is that going to get them over the line in the end? Their stubbornness and the fact that clean sheets. They'll get goals. They'll get the odd goal here and there in games. They'll win plenty of points, winning 1-0, 2-0. Is that going to be enough for them to get top four, do you reckon?
Yeah, again, I think, they have played well and, they have spent a lot of money. I think they've spent wisely in what they've bought as well. They haven't gone, maybe like City crazy or something, something, or Chelsea. Let's say Chelsea crazy right now.
Yeah.
Where they're just kind of buying everybody that anybody kind of even considers wanting. So I kind of agree with you, lads, in terms of Eddie Howe, as well. I think that a lot of people wanted him to get a better, higher level job to see how he, kind of could do. And, I think he is performing way above expectation, but is, scrapping 0-0s here and there, 1-0s, kind of going to get you over the line? I just don't know, because I expect to see Liverpool do better, and they can't do any worse than they have. No offense to that. I expect, maybe Chelsea to start trying to pick up points, even though goalless tonight. And I expect Spurs to try and push as well. So will they be able to is difficult. I was speaking to a Newcastle fan, and he, it surprised me where he said European football is important. Champions League is a dream. And so is it too early now for them to play Champions League football?
Eddie Howe thinks like that, he'll be out of a job quick.
I'll tell you what, I'll be honest, right? I heard that talk from Newcastle fans in the first half of the season, the first 2-3 months. And it was the same kind of talk that I was hearing from Arsenal fans. Oh, we're not in the title race. We're this, we're that. We're building, we're this, we're that. You're in the spot. You're in the seat. It can go as quickly as you get there. And the idea that you're in someone put it in the chat there a few minutes ago about Leicester City being in the spot, being in fourth and fighting to be in the Champions League and bottling it. And they did it twice, and they're miles off it now because they didn't capitalize on it. Newcastle, yeah, they have the funds to be able to sustain multiple challenges to get into the top four. But it's a huge difference when you get there. It opens so many avenues to you. And especially to do it before the rule changes come in for UEFA. To be able to do it then is huge. It's monumental, because when the rule changes come in, if Newcastle aren't there beforehand, the way the changes are going to come in, for anyone who doesn't know, is your on-field football costs. If you qualify for UEFA competition, and I expect the Premier League to take this on board as well, will be you're allowed to have 70% of your football operating costs on the pitch. So that's transfers, wages, agents' fees, everything of your entire budget. Only up to 70% is allowed on your playing staff. So if you don't have the commercial revenue behind you in sponsorship deals and what have you, and prize money that's already accrued, it limits your ability to be able to put that money on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So it in a roundabout way, it levels the playing field for everyone. So I think Newcastle will be thereabouts this season. If not this season, next season for sure.
Yeah.
I think they'll win handy. I think it'll be 2-3. I think 2-0 easy. And I don't think they'll break any sweat. Jefoe, how do you see this one going?
Probably it's slightly. I think they might just scrape a 2-0 Newcastle. I think it'll be a little bit tighter. Obviously, West Ham have been defending quite well. But like I said, they just can't score. So yeah, I'll go 2-0. 2-0 Newcastle.
2-0. The Lukes speak first, or forever hold your peace.
1-0 Newcastle.
1-0, and Luke.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm copying Luke Tanner here. 1-0 Newcastle.
Fair enough.
We're on the same way.
It'd be interesting. Look, whichever way it goes, it's they're the two TV games for the 12:30 kickoff and the 5:30 kickoff. It's mad, really, when you think about it. I was looking at the 3 o'clock games tomorrow. You got a Midlands derby, Villa and Leicester. I just Jeff. How do you see that one? It's just a quick score, Villa Leicester, because Villa are flying at the minute.
Yeah, they're playing quite well, but they've been shaky at the back, and that's the one thing that Emery's got to try and shore up a little bit, because they did well in the summer, bringing in Diego Carlos, and him getting injured was a big loss. So I mean, keep it short and sweet. I think it'll probably be a draw between them, and I would probably go sort of 1-1, 2-2.
Yeah, Leicester be happy with that.
Yeah,
Luke, Brentford, Southampton. Luke, Tottenham.
Luke Tottenham. That doesn't really
Luke
help it either, does it? I think I can see Brentford winning this. Do they score lots of goals? Probably not. I'm going to be really boring tonight. 1-0.
That's all right.
Brentford. Yeah.
So Luke Tanner, Brighton, Bournemouth.
Brighton 3-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One quick one on Brighton. Do you think Caicedo starts?
No, but I think he'll come off the bench though. Be very interesting to see Brighton fans' reactions though, if he does come on.
I'm more interested to see how De Zerbi handles that one. But
apparently in the press he's handling it well so far.
Yeah,
but I don't expect him to stay there any longer than the summer.
There is an awful lot to like about him. As on off the pitch,
Juve's eyeing him up as well, De Zerbi.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him as a manager for sure. Jefoe, Manchester United against Crystal Palace.
4-1 United.
Even though they played midweek, he won't rotate. Yeah,
no, they still got it. They're rolling on a purple patch.
They are, aren't they? Pricks.
Yeah.
Never mind. Look, I mean, we're past the watershed now. They're all a bunch of pricks.
Could say better myself.
Okay, look, Wolves against Liverpool.
All right, see you later. Goodbye.
Well, no, stop, because I'm going to start with you. Klopp has never lost to Wolves in the league.
You've jinxed it now.
I know. I'm going to jinx it more.
Oh,
well, now look. I mean, in fairness, our away record is shocking. All right, but the first half of the season, how does Klopp do it with the players? That look, the first half of the season is done. We are where we are.
Yeah.
How does he? Because I think he's going to have to summon all of his skill as a man manager to be able to motivate this squad to go in the second half of the season. It's like we've got the rest of this season in the league and the Champions League to play for. That's it. We're out of everything else. How does he do it?
Swallow his pride, I think, with some of his tactics. I think he needs to swallow his pride with the high line. I think he's going to have to. I think we're going to have to keep it compact, sit deep, hit on the counter attack. For me, I think that's the only way Liverpool are going to get success towards the back end of the season. If they have any small chance of getting top four, which I think is near enough out the window, because I think Liverpool have left themselves too much work to do. I think we've got to sit deep. I think the Brighton game in the FA Cup showed that some of these players should be looking at new clubs in the summer, because some of the cameos were nothing short of abysmal. I'm not going to. Fabinho was the obvious one.
I haven't spoken to you since.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you straight out. I've already voiced my opinion on what should have happened.
We should have had like 8 men. Like we should have had 3 reds, back to back reds.
The Ibu Kanate. Well, I was on a Brighton podcast post match the next day, and the Ibu one you could argue because the ref never gave it as a foul. VAR can't interfere.
I thought he was a lucky boy.
I think it was a yellow card, and it would have been his second, and he was off. Robbo, if there was an orange card in the game, that would have been it. I don't think it's a red. I think it was definite 100% yellow, which he got. But if there was an orange card in a sin bin, yeah, I wouldn't argue with that either. But the Fabinho one, what did you make of it when you saw it first up?
I thought he's going off it. I thought he's going off. It was so clumsy. I don't think it was. He's just stupid. Like, he got away. He had no chance of getting the ball. And the second he launched it, like, he knew he was going to get sent off. Like, that face was the face of a guy that knew that he was about to get sent off. But I reckon the second he saw that yellow card, he thought, wow, I've been given a second chance here. Because I don't know how he stayed on the pitch. And
Jefoe, how did you see that one? Because look, I'd be straight. I was disgusted that he stayed on the pitch. It was a straight red all day long. It was a vile tackle, one of the worst I've seen in recent years. I just don't get. I don't get how a VAR referee. I mean, Coote is one of the worst referees in the league. That 100%. But how a second pair of eyes looked at that and didn't give it a red card, I just don't get it. I really don't. And I don't know a single Liverpool fan anywhere who's said different.
Yeah, I think some did it pretty well. It was horrendous tackle. And as you say, clumsy. And I think a lot of the issues with in that game, and I think going throughout the season, has been a lack of discipline and concentration from a lot of the players. I think maybe that's down to several reasons, like down to contracts and things like that, and people maybe not wanting to play anymore, getting tired. But as you say, horrendous tackle. VAR this season has had that many controversial like flashpoints where we've had to discuss in great length, probably more than what we would have done before VAR about decisions. Because, like you say, a second pair of eyes is looking at it, and you think, how can 2 people, 3 people not come up with the right decision? And it's upsetting for the game that this is the way that people who not play the game in most instances are making decisions which are affecting not one game but whole seasons of clubs, and the knock-on effects of that monetarily, talking hundreds of millions of pounds if a team gets relegated and has to tear up a whole squad.
Look at Sheffield United, Villa.
Exactly.
Sheffield United should have stayed up, and it should have been Villa that should have gone down, based on that VAR decision with goal line technology decided not to work. So,
I mean, Luke, how would you address? Because look, VAR isn't gone away. Okay, how do we bridge this gap where fans are more informed? Do the Premier League have to bite the bullet and say, look, either broadcast the conversation, or as I saw in the Bundesliga the other week, interview the match referee with the managers involved post-match? Because I was gobsmacked when I saw that in the Bundesliga. I was like, wow. The sky didn't fall in Germany or nothing.
Right? Both options are there to be used, but will the Premier League stand up and be, counted in a sense? Will they stand up and say, do you know what, we will take a stand and we will, because we've seen it all, in the Australian League and other places like that, right? When you can hear the conversation. It happens in rugby. It's happened in rugby for a long time, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a big rugby fan, but I know that happens. And it's just about being transparent to the fans, because right now VAR doesn't work. We can blame poor officiating. We can blame the fact that they haven't played the game. We can blame all these different things, right? But that tackle from Fabinho is a clear red card. And so how every one of us, right? Bear in mind, I'm reading the comments as they come in as well. and you guys being the Liverpool channel, all the comments saying red card, and so how neutral, VAR people can't. I don't understand, and it's flabbergasting. And so either option will work. Do I think they will do either option? No. I also think they should do, similar, maybe not to the extent that they did, but similar to which they did in the World Cup, where the minutes are added on at the end, so we see more football happening. Because remind you guys of the Newcastle Liverpool game, right?
I was going to say Newcastle would never go home.
Yeah, exactly. And so all those things, players not going off at the nearest touchline, walking as slow as they can.
You've muted yourself.
Go on mute.
Yeah, you've gone on mute. And he's frozen. All right, he'll be back in a minute. Jefoe, tomorrow's game, look, this is probably going to be the strongest Wolves that we've faced in all of the games that we've played this season, I'd imagine. So you've got to be fancying your chances, surely. After you've seen now, when we first had you on, we were telling you the shit show that was coming.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, you didn't believe us. Now you're going to believe us. So what are you expecting from Wolves tomorrow?
Well, as circling back to what we said at the start, fantastic transfer window. So it's now how those players get integrated by Lopetegui, and how many of them actually come on and start. So, I mean, in theory, we're starting to show a lot of promise and a lot going forward, a lot of quality, and we're starting to make chances. And the biggest thing for us now is we're scoring goals from different areas of the pitch, which is what we've not been able to do. Daniel Podence being involved in goals. And now we brought in some Pablo Sarabia, who's scored goals wherever he's been. So it's one of those. It's now we have to take the game to you tomorrow, and we have to play on the front foot, because in the replay of the FA Cup, the first 20 minutes we were phenomenal, and we played on the front foot. We attacked. We took the game to Liverpool, and that's how we need to see that over a prolonged period of time. Now we need to see that over a full game. Even if it's over a full half, you can be away, you can be out of sight in a game if you've scored 2 or 3 goals in the first half. And that's what we need to see from Wolves. We need to see more goals. We need to see more attacking threat.
Yeah, it's, I mean, the thing is, for me, both sides are in the same boat, really. Since our humbling against Brighton, we haven't been creating much at all. Half chances at best. And I think we've scored once. We scored 1 goal against Brighton in the cup. Went ahead, and we were ahead for 9 minutes. And deservedly, we lost in the end, and it was no great surprise that we lost in the end. But it was a late goal that cost us. But I think both sides will approach this as, look, every point for Wolves is massive at the minute. 3 is ideal, 1 is must. And for us, for Liverpool, it has to be a case of, look,
we need some momentum.
We're 7 points behind Spurs with 2 games in hand. And the only way you can start to chase that down is by starting to win games. And confidence is only going to come from wins, and that has to start from somewhere. Unfortunately, is with all of the injuries that we've got at the minute, we are in probably 2 areas of the pitch on the bare bones. We're on where we can't afford anything else. I mean, Luke, I'll come to you how do you see this one going first and foremost? And do you see Liverpool capable of putting a run together? Or is it a case that, look, there's just too much mileage in this team's legs and they just don't have the get up and go to go again?
Which one, me or the other?
To Luke, Spurs fan, Luke.
Sorry.
It's fine. This is the problem when I'm going to have to really get better about putting 2 Lukes on the same show.
It always happens when we're both on.
I know.
I don't know. It's weird. It is weird with you guys. Still with the attacking players that you have, there should be more goals. It just, we can talk for days and days, I think, about, Liverpool and why the form is dropping and player injuries and, this and that and the other. I don't think it helps this week because Konate's injured now, isn't he?
Yeah. That's
so,
it.
Just gets better, doesn't it? So I just don't know what it would take. I wouldn't be worried as a Liverpool fan, no offense, about Wolves, but I wouldn't be worried in the sense of, I don't see Wolves really scoring much either. So I know I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but I'm putting this as a 0-0, and get on with it. But
I mean, no, I don't think you're far off. I think there's going to be the odd goal in it if it's anything. But Luke Tanner, what would your starting 11 be?
Be Alisson,
yeah,
Trent, Gomez, Matip, Robertson, Bajcetic, Keita, Thiago, Gakpo, Nunez, and Elliott on the right. I'd drop Salah. He's hugging the touchline. He's practically doing nothing. He's doing absolutely. It's not offering anything. Elliott has been better in the right, on the right wing, this season for me, and I think Salah needs to be dropped. I think a message needs to be sent. I know Klopp took Trent off against Brighton because I think he's mentioned something about his body language or something, but he needs to do the same with Salah to show Salah that he can't get away with not doing anything. He's had three games of not having even a shot on goal. It's poor. So Salah bench for me, and he's my fantasy league captain, and he's done nothing this season. So
yeah. I mean, Salah's got 17 goals, but 7 of them are in the league. He's flying in the Champions League, but his form has really jumped off a cliff in the last few weeks. The miss he had against Brighton, where it was on his strong foot, it was a lovely pass into him from Elliott, and I expected him to take the touch on his left foot and just bang that in. And you could just see his confidence is on the floor. When the way that he took it, he's just shanked it, and it just went way wide. And as much as I don't think it'll happen. I think you're right. You've got the starting lineup pretty much nailed on. Maybe Henderson for Naby, but I doubt it.
It wouldn't surprise me if Milner starts at right back and Trent on the bench.
I just think that it's a case now for the players who've been, ever since the reset after the first Brighton game, if you have the shirt, it's yours to lose. And I think the front three will probably be Gakpo, Darwin, and Mo. But in what combination did they play in? Whether Gakpo stays through the middle and Darwin and Mo come off the wings, or it goes with Darwin on through the middle and Gakpo is a free roll on the left. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Jefoe, how do you guys think you'll line up for tomorrow? Because is he still kind of 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3? How's Lopetegui set up normally for these type of games at home?
So it's going to be 4-3-3 again. Probably looking Jose Sarr, Semedo, Collins. I think there's a good chance that Kilman will get dropped and Dawson's bought in. And then young lad Hugo Bueno will probably keep his place. Very impressed with him this season. Yeah. Midfield, Nunez, Neves, and Lamina. And then up front, Pedence, Sarabia, and Matheus Cunha. I think that's probably our strongest team now.
I forgot about Sarabia. Yeah, Collins is going to get a lot of love in the chat anyway because look, we're an Irish channel basically. So, but Collins has been phenomenal in the games that I've seen him playing against us this season. He's been really good. Bueno has been outstanding, really, for someone who's come in his first senior season, really. Yeah. And it's Aït-Nouri. What's going on with him at the minute? Because the last time he played against us, he ended up being a left winger, and they doubled up on that side. So
yeah, it's an interesting one. I think Ulen sees him more as an attacking option.
Yeah.
So he's rotated into left back as and when has been taken off the pitch, because they're rotating positions quite a lot. But he is very good going forward, and I think that's what they'll try and transition him into. That's sort of like what Gareth Bale did at Tottenham. Started at the left back and then got pushed forward into left wing. And I think he's got the abilities to do that. He's very, very good on the ball, very fast, very good footballer. There was a lot of noise about him leaving in January, but it didn't seem like the right move. We've got a very good young player there who with the right development and the right coaches behind him, will turn into a world-class player. So I think his time will come, but I think they're going to try and develop him, as you say, and as you've seen, into more of a left winger than a left back. And YNWA, as long as he stays with us, to touch wood sort of thing, should be the number one left back at the club.
Yeah, that must be the most difficult thing for a Wolves fan at the minute, is the future planning going into each window. The fact that if you have a star boy who lights it up in the league, their heads can get turned really easily, and all the planning that you have for building a squad can go south if it's not handled correctly. So, I mean, you got to give Wolves massive credit for being able to keep the core selling on their terms, but rebuilding in the right way as well. So I've no doubt that you're going to get cherry picked in the summer at some point. But it seems with the João Gomez deal for this window that just happened, that could soften the blow for anything that may come in the summer as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of forward thinking now, and it's proactive looking at, Neves. How Neves is still a Wolves player, I think he's one of the greatest mysteries of football. Yeah. It's the greatest mystery of football how he still plays for Wolves, because he's world class.
I think I think he's probably been priced out of a move, but as we've seen with Chelsea this window, central midfielders, the prices that are being quoted now, if you've got one in your club, they're just gonna, their value is gonna go up and up and up. You know what I mean? And Wolves have two. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, Luke, bottom Luke, there. I'll ask you for a score prediction for this week. You went 0-0, yeah? Still sticking with that?
Yeah, still sticking with that. I think that Wolves are building a good team, and Liverpool are struggling. I just can't see where the goals. As I said to you earlier, like, I look at that Liverpool front line that you guys mentioned, with or without Mo Salah. Gakpo is an absolutely incredibly talented player, but I just don't see you guys scoring. No idea how it's not happening, but I think at some point it will. But I think Luke Tanner's right. I think that Klopp needs to make a statement and show that no player is undroppable, and dropping Mo Salah, may be the answer.
Do you know, I wouldn't rule it out at this stage. I'd rule nothing. I don't think any of them can look at their place in a starting 11 at the minute and feel confident in it.
Unless you're the keeper.
They should. None of them should. No, I'll stick with that. I don't think any of them should be confident of starting anything. But Luke, score prediction from yourself then, mate. You went 0 at the bottom. Luke, Tanner?
1-0 Liverpool.
That's
being very optimistic.
I'm pretty confident. So I reckon we might get a win. So I'll go with 1-0 Wolves.
1-0.
Yeah.
I'll go 2-1 Liverpool.
Score more than 2, Kev. Score more than 1. That's been ballsy.
I just think eventually it's going to click. And the more that midfield three plays together, the more they'll be able to pick runs from players. I think if Darwin starts, Darwin can do all kinds of things. So I don't know.
Collins would be.
It'll be a good matchup actually, because it'll be a good matchup. But look, we'll move on from that one. The last game arguably is the biggest game of the weekend. Really, if you take your neutral hat on, is Spurs versus Man City. at the Tottenham Stadium, where Man City don't like it there very much. Luke, you've got a good record there against them over the last few years. How are you feeling going into it?
Yeah, it's. Do you know what? It's one of those like weird mysteries, like Spurs against City at home. You know, as you say, we do have a good record against them. We do have a good record against City, full stop, minus the recent 4-2.
Well, you had a good half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
4-5.
What Spurs did is they did the opposite of what they usually do.
Yeah.
And then people were saying, why do we not start well? And then it turns out that's why, because we're absolutely useless when we score first. But it's a weird one for me because obviously I want to win every single game. But every time we play, when we played Man City before, and a lot of Spurs fans were like this, where the more points we take off City, the more points Arsenal gain on or go towards winning the league. And it's a really difficult one, right? You can't get into a mentality of being like, oh, well, we shouldn't beat City because then Arsenal win the league type of thing. But
players don't think like that.
But, when City are always a tricky team, regardless of, whether we have a good record or not. And Spurs have a thing of when there's a record to be broken against us, it'll happen. A team's never beaten an English team in the Champions League before. Up comes Spurs, lose. And so, do I think that we beat City? Probably not. I would probably go along the lines of a draw. It'll be interesting to know how Stellini sets them up, whether it's identical to what Conte wants, exactly the same, full stop, no difference. And whether his words of wisdom at half time can work on the players or not, because he usually has a lot to say in the cup games. He tends to come in and do media stuff during FA Cup and things like that. That's what we've seen a lot this season. But
do you expect Pedro Porro to start?
I personally don't. No, I think they might start him some Royale just because. Is it too early for him to be drilled in exactly how he needs to play? But a half-trained Pedro Porro compared to a full-trained Emerson Royale is probably still better. So I'd probably still go with Porro if we can.
I'm going to come back to you in a minute because there's another Spurs player I want to ask you about, Heung-Min Son, but I'll come back to you in a minute. Jefoe, Man City let João Cancelo go on a loan with an option to buy in Munich. Have they left themselves thin in the squad?
I think a little bit, but Pep's, he's a highly experienced manager. We all know, and he can afford to be cutthroat. But I think we were all surprised to see such a talented footballer be let to go and strengthen essentially what is a rival to Man City in terms of like Champions League. I mean, he couldn't play against them, but they could potentially go further into the competition and be there to challenge them later on. So it's bizarre, and like you say, they are leaving themselves a little bit thin, spreading themselves a little bit thin. We saw an injury to the likes of De Bruyne, potentially Haaland. I know they've got Alvarez who can come in and do well, but then you're down to your bare bones, and it's not like City to put themselves in this position, and it's rather concerning if you're a City fan to see that.
It must be because Luke, John Stones has picked up another injury. Haaland is a freak, all right? Haaland is just a fantasy football cheat code.
That's why he's my captain. Sorry.
I'll give you a stat, right? 25 goals, 19 games. He's 1 goal off Sergio Aguero's best ever 38-game season. He's played 19 games. But for me, he's not dragged anyone else with him.
It's been him.
It's been him. And you saw this with Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United last year. The argument with Cristiano Ronaldo being thrown out was that, he's scoring the goals, but no one else was chipping in with him. Are City got to trip over their own feet in the league with Pep trying to prove a point here? I don't get it.
I think so. I think when Haaland came in, it was going to be the issue of are City still going to have the dominance on the ball like they did when they had the false nine with Haaland in the team? And you could see that even though Haaland was scoring a lot of goals, City weren't quite as dominant on the ball. And you saw him try to tinker with the tactics of the inverted fullbacks, and one of them playing in midfield. So they could still have the midfielders, but they left them more open at the back. And I think Pep always likes to prove a point. And I think he may have bitten off a little bit more than he could chew. With João Cancelo going out on loan, I think I was watching a video with that had a City fan on, and usually João Cancelo starts the season really, really well. Then when it comes to the business end of the season, he's usually benched, and it's Zinchenko that's finishing the season off. And if the rumours were to be correct, him and Pep had a massive falling out. And there's only one way if that happens, and that's you out the door. And quite soon afterwards, he goes off to Bayern, and it would not be surprising if he stays at Bayern permanently. But yeah, I think the Haaland signing might cost them the league, which is crazy because Haaland's going to probably break every Premier League goal scoring record in one season. But I think that signing may have cost them the league because they're not going to be as dominant on the ball. I think that's what's going to cost them in the end. Sorry.
I think, Luke, I was going to ask you about Son. I'll ask you about Son in a minute. But I think that's a fair point that for how good Haaland is, and he is, let's not kid about. Nobody else where Sterling would get his customarily half a dozen to a dozen tap-ins. Foden would chip in. Everyone else would chip in with goals. We're not seeing that this season with City. And is it a case? Are they suffering a similar kind of hangover to what Liverpool have and Chelsea have, whereas just the volume and intensity of the last few seasons have caught up with the core of that squad?
Yeah, it could be, but it also could be the fact that I don't believe Pep Guardiola does himself any favours. With the constant, if you play FPL, then you'll know, right? Very difficult, apart from if you have Haaland in your team, to have any other City players in. Pep Roulette, exactly. And that can't be, as much as people talk about, that motivates the players to, when they get their chance, to be able to step up and, prove themselves and this kind of thing. But I think it also winds some of them up.
There's been a lot of unrest like this season. Players unhappy, Laporte, Walker, I think Bernardo Silva's wanting to leave, João Cancelo, Gundogan. I think there's more this season that there are players getting a little bit fed up of what's going on. So it's the first time that players are actually, it's been leaked that players are unhappy, because usually at City, nothing comes out of the City camp that anyone's unhappy. But I think this season, the cracks are showing that players are unhappy with Pep's tactics or motivations at the club.
Yeah, typical the season we fall off a fucking cliff.
No. We look at goals. Haaland's got 25. Foden's got 7.
Yeah,
Mahrez with 4.
Yeah,
it's
not enough. But I was going to ask you about Heung-min Son with players that have fallen off a cliff. As much as I love him, and I do love his character as a player, not just so much his playing ability, but his character as a player as well. The fact that he'll just run for days and he's got a great engine. But has he run his race long with Spurs, or is it a case that, look, this is just a season, a blip, and he'll come again? Or is it a case that Spurs might look in the summer to cash in and use any funds from him to get a rebuild going?
I don't see them cashing in on Son. I think if you look at Son's previous seasons for Spurs, take out last season's joint Golden Boot winning season. Yeah. He always goes through patches of scoring goals, not goals. Granted, this season, it is more difficult for him. I can blame the tactics. I can blame lots of different things. But if you watch, everyone watch Son on Sunday. Sometimes because he works best when the ball is played to him and he's in his stride, he can take the ball in and just go with it, and just burst of pace and off he goes. Watch him. Every time the ball comes to him now, it's under his feet. The first touch with him isn't there, and it's always that 1-2 seconds of, whether it's a mentality thing, whether it's his mind's not right, but the feet don't do what they should be doing, and the next thing you know, he's spinning around in circles. He loses the ball in midfield, or his pass out onto the opposite wing, or whatever it is, right? Isn't right. We saw him. Only Preston, but we saw him against Preston. He performed well in the absence of Harry Kane. He stepped up. He seemed to drop deeper as well to get the ball. He seemed to want the ball. So it was nice to see him. Yes, we're playing championship opposition, but it was nice to see him actually get more touches of the ball, because I think with him, I don't know if you've ever watched the sensational documentary, but one of the things that his dad talks about is when he was really young, they never did shooting practice. It was always, touch it here, touch there. If for punishment, he would make them walk around the edge of the pitch doing keepy ups, and then if he dropped the ball, you have to stop all over again. And so you don't expect a player like that to lose that touch. But right now, it seems to me, whether he's over kind of in his own mind and really wants to perform and get out of this rut that he's in, but what's actually happening is it's causing the opposite to him because he's overthinking things. That's what I believe. But
it'd be an interesting one for sure. But look, I'll stick with you. Okay, you give us two predictions: your heart and your head.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Luke?
Do you know what? My heart, I really want to see a win. I think, beating City at home would really be able to kick on our season, be able to, show that we can definitely get top four this season. But it would be, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. So I'd be talking even similar to what happened at the Etihad with a 3-2, I could see happening. But my head, I'm sticking with a 2-2 draw. I can't go for a Spurs loss. There's nothing in me that can put us down to lose. But
no, I know that feeling.
Keeping a clean sheet will be near impossible. It's whether
you got Lloris and goals, so I get that.
Basically, it's not happening then.
Look, in fairness, he's one problem you guys got to fix in the summer. I don't care. He's just like calamity waiting to happen. Jefoe, what would your score prediction be for this one? Sunday, 4:30 kickoff, Sky Sports, big razzmatazz, all the shit and all the giggles.
Yeah, I think despite Man City's lack of form, Tottenham's ground, I think I'll probably do it quite easily. I think I'll go 2-0 City. I can't see Tottenham doing anything at the moment. It's Conte just can't get him going. I know he's not going to be there, but his assistant's going to do it for him. But he just can't seem to get the system rolling and the way he wants it. So I go 2-0 City.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think that Spurs are stuck in the middle of what to do, and they're not doing either. And I mean, Luke, what do you think first and foremost? I mean, the thing is with Spurs, you can only go into games conceding a lead so often before it just falls apart on you. And
Liverpool conceding first, and hopefully,
but the difference with Spurs was their second half of games they go for it and they get into it, and you've seen it when they played City first time around. They got a lead, they got 2 up, and they just capitulated. It really was City just decided to pull the pants down the second
few
half.
levels and take the game away from Spurs.
Yeah, because for how good Spurs were and how bad City were in that first half, it was roles reversed in the second half, and they just went bang, 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 bang. I mean, is that going to be in Spurs' head going into this?
Possibly.
Or is it a case of, look, we got up against them last time, we can keep this solid?
I've got a feeling this is going to be the game of the weekend. So I think it's going to be a Desmond 3-3. I think it's going to be goals galore. It'll be like the game last season when Kane won it in the last minute. Instead, it's going to be Kane getting a last-minute equaliser to make it 3-3. Because I think it's going to be a cracking game.
I hope so. I mean, look, I hope so. Because I look at the rest of the games, I just don't see any shocks or many goals this weekend. But I think that one could have goals. It'll be a fascinating one for sure. But so you're going 3-3. Luke's going 2-2. Jefoe's 2-0 to City.
Are you going to
Yeah.
put a Spurs win on, Kev?
No, I'm with Jefoe, man. I think City do a 2-0, no matter at all. I think it'll probably be 2-1. I think Spurs are good enough. Spurs will get a goal.
Yes,
when
we
their
do.
backs are to the wall, I think they'll get a goal. But I think they could overcommit trying to get a second, and they could get punished for it. But to me, both sides are disjointed. There's something not right in both sides. It's just a case of you add in the Haaland factor, and he gets a chance. He's got that breakneck speed to make something happen. And if he does, Alvarez will come off the bench. So I just think they've got too many tools, even in this kind of disjointed season for him. But look, that's that. It's 4 games covered. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming on. Jefoe, thank you very much. Where can people find you?
So yeah, on Twitter, Instagram, all the regular places, the Jefoe Show, and catch us live on Wolves Fancast on YouTube, Spotify, and all your favourite places for podcasts.
Yeah, please go and give these guys' channels a follow as well. Luke, you back on tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock, usual slot?
Yep. You heard it, yeah. 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Again, just Park Lane Podcast on all your social medias, YouTube, Spotify, everyone.
You got a nice little cast on there now. It's a really good crew. It's really good chat as well when you guys get going. It's not all singing for the same hymn sheet. You get some proper good arguments in there as well. And
yeah, just got a new lad on as well, Harry. He's only 14, but he really knows his stuff. And some of our hosts are in and out. Some of us are fence sitters. There's lots of different chat as well. So yeah, if you fancy it, check us out.
Yeah, so if you need a break from the FSG shit, go and watch the Enoch stuff. I'll tell you what, it's just as good. It's just as good. They give us a good run for our money, I'll tell you. Luke, what have you got planned for the weekend? Have you got anything on?
Yeah. Not this weekend, no, but next weekend is UFC 284. So I'll be doing a preview with Callum from Coppish, and we'll be doing a watch along. Probably the most under-promoted card for the past few years. Pound for pound, number 1 and 2, and not a peep promotion-wise. It's more interested about this slap league, which is utter crap.
Look, that's
less said about that, the better.
Yeah, exactly. That's dumb shit for dumb people. But look, on that note, I just wanted to quickly mention the charities, breast cancer awareness charity that we're trying to raise funds for. The link is in the description below. If you can donate, please do. If you can't donate, just copy the link, share it onto your social medias, and just get the word out there. There's going to be a lot more coming up on that over the next few weeks and months to come, but we need to get that up to 20K as soon as humanly possible, to be honest. But sooner the better. Tomorrow, I'm not here, but there will be a post-match show. I think it might be Matt and Gav tomorrow on the post-match.
That's going to be fun.
And then Sunday will be a fat back 4, and we start the week again on Monday with winners and losers, and we just keep going and going and going. On that note, listen, thanks everyone for coming on. Thanks for everyone in the chat. Really appreciate it. If you could hit the like button on your way out, top work. Thank you. And on that note, look, good night. See you next week.